When all contact is lost with a distant colony world, a spaceship crew sent to investigate discovers a bizarre alien threat in Paradise-1. That's the book I'm reviewing on this episode of SFF 180. Hello again, everyone. Thomas here, your host as always. Thank you so much for joining me. If every reader's big worry in the 2020s is that generative AI will take over such creative pursuits as art and writing, it must be said that Paradise-1, a wannabe space opera horror mashup by David Wellington, who is presumably a human, is exactly the kind of soulless mechanical exercise that reads as if it was spouted out of a machine. Wellington actually wrote this book after being given the basic idea by his editor at Orbit, and then several other members of the publishing team chimed in with input as well. So, Paradise-1, while not created by a machine, was created more or less by a committee. And does it ever show in the finished result? The book runs 677 pages, though it reads briskly, thanks to being broken up into chapters of mostly 2 to 4 pages each, like a James Patterson product. But the story is shallower than an inflatable kiddie pool. It simply doesn't have the substance to support the book's length, meaning that most of it is padded out by a series of lumbering, repetitive action scenes that feel more enervating than exciting. The result is this paradoxical beast of a book that is both fast-paced and, at the same time, feels like it's never gonna end. It has an episodic structure that strongly suggests Orbit might have its eye on selling this as another hit streaming series after The Witcher. But most insultingly, after nearly 700 pages of tedious bombast, instead of giving us an ending, the book simply stops. Literally, it stops mid-scene with a to-be-continued tag. I've suffered bad books before, but here I really think I should qualify for workman's comp. The story opens promisingly on Ganymede, where Alexandra Petrova, an agent for a military police outfit called Firewatch, is about to arrest a man suspected of being the most prolific serial killer on the entire moon. But his real situation is very different, and Petrova learns right away that she has unknowingly interfered in a wide-reaching Firewatch investigation. Now, this is a blow to Petrova's career because she's already unpopular among her fellow agents for being a Nepo baby. Her mother, Ekaterina, was the former director of Firewatch, but she was not exactly confident in her daughter's skills either. For her sins, Petrova is reassigned to a distant colony planet, Paradise-1, which has mysteriously gone dark. Traveling with her is the pilot, Sam Parker, with whom she once had a brief fling, and Zhang Lei, a doctor whose previous post was the colony on Titan. Following what's described as a psychotic break, Zhang now has to wear a drug-dispensing bracelet. Probably not anyone's first choice for a medical officer, but Zhang has very good reasons for his emotional problems. To cut a very, very long story short, no sooner has their vessel entered the Paradise-1 system than they are attacked. It turns out that there are well over 100 Earth vessels in orbit around the planet, ranging from colony transports large enough to carry 10,000 passengers, to military ships, to cargo carriers. And every single one of them has had their onboard AIs, and in turn their crews, infected by an alien life form of some kind that Zhang calls the Basilisk. The Basilisk is a kind of mimetic contagion. It can affect both artificial and human intelligence, making its victims deeply delusional, though never in exactly the same way. On one ship, the crew is afflicted by an insatiable hunger, so powerful they'll eat just anything, including each other and themselves, making them basically zombies. Another crew form themselves into a bizarre cult living in absolute darkness, convinced that light itself is evil. Yes, I know, this sounds like a premise that no one could possibly screw up. But Paradise-1 simply can't pull off anything it tries. And it tries almost everything, right up to the good old kitchen sink. every time it wants to be scary, it's goofy. All of its characters, including our heroes, are types more than fully believable people. And they're likable, they endure much, we're sympathetic, but there's very little depth or development to them beyond cliché tragic backstories. Petrova's character just bounces back and forth as Wellington needs her to. In one scene, she'll be the brave, determined action hero. In the next, a helpless, shrinking Violet in need of rescue. Wellington's choices regarding character affect the book's tone. It's hard to sustain tension and fear when you're hearing constant wisecracks from the ship's robot, Rapscallion, who acts like Bender from Futurama. Even worse is what becomes of these shipboard AIs that are infected by the basilisk. Wellington had plenty of chances to shift the horror content here right into warp speed, but instead of the endless terror promised by the book's cover, what we encounter is a parade of Disney cartoon villains. I'm not kidding. What the book does with one of the infected AIs named Eurydice is so mind-blowingly silly that I'm thinking Orbit might have made a wiser move marketing Paradise-1 as a spoof or a comedy. To his credit, Wellington is aware that in order to get us on board for this story, we're going to have to swallow some huge implausibilities. His solution is to hang lampshades on the most glaring of them so that we can at least see that questions are being addressed, if not answered. But we're still expected to believe that over a 14-month period, 115 spacecraft, carrying probably up to 100,000 personnel and colonists, have vanished, and that the government back on Earth has succeeded in keeping it all under wraps by faking comms from the colony. Honestly, that's so dumb, it can only be believed by your conspiracy theory-loving crazy uncle that everyone else in the family hopes will be too busy to come to Thanksgiving dinner this year. I mean, unless the story is set in some Star Trek post-capitalist future, and there's nothing in the text to suggest it is, then the disappearance of that many ships and cargo and warm bodies is going to both be a humanitarian crisis and something that sends global markets into a tailspin. But even that's not quite as dumb as asking us to believe that this same government, once they decided they might have a real problem on their hands, chose to send one more ship, hoping that one man on board that ship will figure everything out. These are all just embarrassing problems that would sink far less ambitious novels. But I think what will turn off most readers to this is the sense of being caught in an endless grind, in which each new terrifying encounter or escape from near certain death our heroes experience is overblown and exhausting, rather than thrilling. You know how successful action-adventure stories are referred to as roller coaster rides? Yeah, well, Paradise-1 is more like a treadmill, where you do thousands and thousands of steps while never actually going anywhere. Paradise-1? More like Paradise Lost. In space. And there you have it. That's all I've got time for in this episode of SFF 180. Remember, the most important thing, these are reviews. You are not always going to agree with me, but if you enjoyed watching, please hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please sub. If you have not done so, that's how the channel grows. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon, where recruits into Wink's Army occasionally get little perks like early access to some of my videos, but mainly, the purpose of the Patreon is to help me pay Matt Olson, my brilliantly gifted and talented channel artist who does all of my beautiful thumbnails for me. So I want to thank all of those folks for their additional support. Once again, greatly appreciated. I want to thank all the rest of you guys for being the very best viewers in all of BookTube, and until I see all of you next time, please stay safe and healthy, and happy reading.